The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled up to the cabin, dust swirling in the late afternoon light. I stepped out, the cold air biting through my coat, and there she was, standing in the doorway, her stare cutting straight through me. My heart thudded hard, like it knew something I didn't. This place was remote, miles from anywhere, and we'd been matched to share it for the winter artist retreat. No escape if things went south. I felt judged already, unwelcome in her territory. I grabbed my bag and started unpacking, eyes fixed on the ground, avoiding that gaze. That first night set the tone. Uneasy coexistence in the heavy quiet. I'd come here from the city, chasing some kind of reset. The noise back home had worn me down. Endless meetings, faces I couldn't read, a life that felt too scripted. I was guarded about it all, my past tucked away like old letters in a drawer. This cabin was supposed to be my escape, a place to write without eyes on me. But sharing it? That was the program's rule. Pairing strangers to build community. I hadn't counted on her. She emerged from the shadows of the porch as I hauled my suitcase up the steps. Broad-shouldered, in faded flannel that hung loose over her frame, she moved with the kind of ease that came from knowing this land. Her hands were calloused, rough from work I could only guess at, chopping wood maybe, or tending whatever kept this place running through the winters. She didn't smile, just watched. Our eyes met then, and hers were sharp, like flint striking against stone. I read disdain in them right away. An outsider stumbling into her world, soft from city streets. My own hands felt fragile in comparison, nails still manicured from habit, skin pale against the grit already settling on everything. I shifted my weight, the wooden step creaking under me. "Name's Riley," she said finally, voice low and even, like the rumble of distant thunder. No handshake, just a nod toward the door. "I'm Lena," I replied, keeping it short. The air between us thickened, heavy with what neither of us said. Judgment hung there, unspoken. Her sizing up my unfamiliarity, me bracing for rejection. Why had I agreed to this? The isolation pressed in already, the nearest town a winding drive away. Craving solitude, I wondered if I'd made a mistake, signing up for shared walls in this forgotten corner. Inside, the cabin smelled of pine and old smoke, the single room divided by a rough partition. My side had a narrow bed, a desk scarred from years of use. Hers mirrored it but neater, tools lined up precise on a shelf. I unpacked slowly, folding clothes into the drawer, feeling her presence like a shadow across the space. She busied herself by the stove, stoking the fire without a word. The crackle filled the quiet, but it didn't ease the tension. I glanced over once, catching her watching me again. Those eyes, dark, unyielding, made my stomach twist. Was it the way I moved, too hesitant? Or something deeper, like she saw through my careful facade? I turned away, focusing on my notebook, the blank pages mocking me. Solitude had been the promise, but here I was, trapped with someone who seemed to resent my very arrival. Dinner was simple, canned stew heated over the flame. We ate at the small table, forks scraping against tin plates. "You write?" she asked, breaking the silence, her gaze on my hands. "Yeah, stories mostly." I kept it vague, not ready to share fragments of my guarded life. The failed relationships, the ache of hiding parts of myself in the city bustle. She nodded, once. This place helps with that, clears the head. But her tone carried an edge, like a warning. The unspoken judgment lingered, making the room feel smaller. That night, as I lay in bed, the thin walls carried her breathing. Steady, rhythmic. I stared at the ceiling beams, doubting everything. Why share this? I longed for the quiet of being alone, no stares to decipher, no presence to navigate. But the wind howled outside, rattling the windows, reminding me there was no leaving now. Settling in amplified the silence between us. Each morning I'd wake to the scent of coffee brewing, her routine already in motion. I'd pour a cup, avoiding her eyes, the space between us growing heavier with every unspoken word. The days blurred into a rhythm that wasn't mine. I'd wake to the coffee scent, but my habits clashed with hers from the start. In the city, I'd linger over breakfast, scrolling notes on my phone before writing. Here, Riley had the place mapped out. Fire stoked by dawn, tools wiped clean before the light hit the windows. I'd leave my mug on the counter, half drunk, and come back to it rinsed, set precisely beside the sink. It felt like a correction, not kindness. One morning I spilled grounds while grinding them rough on the old mill. Black flecks scattered across the wood floor, sticking in the cracks. I knelt to sweep them, but Riley walked in, her boots thudding heavy. She scoffed, a short, sharp sound that cut through the quiet. "Watch it," she muttered, grabbing the broom without a glance. Her hands gripped it tight, knuckles whitening against the grit under her nails. I stood back, heat rising in my cheeks. Was it the mess? Or me, fumbling in her space? The cold wind seeped through the cabin's cracks that afternoon, whistling like a warning. I tried sealing one with a rag, but it tore free in the draft. Riley slammed the door then, coming in from splitting wood, her arms loaded with logs. The echo hung, making the room smaller. I caught her glare, those eyes narrowing at the rag on the floor. "Doesn't stick," she said flatly, stacking the wood with deliberate thuds. I nodded, biting back words. The unease settled deeper, the chill not just from the air. I pushed for connection that evening, over stew again. The pot bubbled on the stove, steam carrying hints of herbs she'd added without asking. "This place. What brought you here?" I ventured, stirring slowly. My voice felt too light, probing at her silence. She paused, spoon midway to her mouth. Needed the quiet. Curt, like a door closing. No follow-up, no question back. I filled the gap with a nod, my own story locked away. The wind howled outside, rattling panes, and I wondered if she'd even heard me right. Nights grew longer in isolation. I'd sit by the fire alone after she turned in, flames licking the logs, casting shadows that danced like doubts. Her glares replayed in my mind. The scoff at the spill, the slam of the door. Each one built the wall higher. I assumed she disliked me, this city stray disrupting her order. My hands twisted in my lap, the warmth from the fire doing little for the cold knot in my chest. The grit worked into my skin by week's end, nails dark from hauling water from the stream. I'd forget to shake it off, tracking mud across the floor. Riley's response was always the same, a quiet shake of her head, broom in hand again. No words, just action that felt like judgment. I guarded my edges sharper, hiding the vulnerability that had driven me here. The ache of city nights alone, connections that fizzled before they started. Assuming mutual dislike kept it simple, safer. One afternoon, I left my notebook open on the table, pages scribbled with half-formed lines about escape. She passed by, eyes flicking over it, then away. "Messy," she said under her breath. I snapped it shut, heart thudding. Was that a dig at my words? Or just the clutter? The silence stretched, heavy as the dust settling on the sills. Attempts at talk faltered every time. I'd ask about the land, the way the river ran low in fall. "Changes with the rain," she'd reply, eyes on her hands, calluses catching the light. Curt, always. The cold wind through cracks heightened it all, seeping into bones, mirroring the distance between us. Growing isolation wrapped tighter each night by the fire. I'd replay the glares, the scoops, the slams, echoing in my head. Emotional guards stayed up, mine mirroring hers, assuming dislike was the thread holding us apart. No room for more in this remote quiet. Exhaustion from the day finally caught me one evening, body heavy after chopping kindling that splintered wrong every swing. The axe slipped again, wood chips flying like accusations. My arms burned, shoulders knotted from the unfamiliar weight. I volunteered for the kindling that day, thinking it might bridge the gap, show I could pull my weight. But the wind had picked up, whipping strands of my hair across my face, tangling them into knots that pulled with every swing. By dusk, exhaustion hit like a wave. I slumped onto the worn bench by the hearth, the fire's warmth barely cutting the chill that had seeped into my bones. My eyes drifted shut, the day's failures replaying in the quiet. I didn't hear her approach. The cabin's floorboards creaked under her boots, but sleep tugged too hard. Then a brush, light, almost hesitant, against the back of my neck. Fingers, cool at first, then warming as they gathered the loose strands whipping free from the wind's earlier assault. I stirred, half aware, but the touch persisted. It moved with purpose, parting the tangles, weaving them slow. The tug came next. Gentle, yet firm. Like she was untangling something deeper than hair. Each pull sent a shiver down my spine, the warmth of her hands contrasting the cabin's persistent chill. Her breath hovered close, steady against my skin, carrying the faint scent of pine sap and earth from outside. My body tensed under it, caught between the fire's flicker and this unexpected closeness. Who was she to touch me like that? In the haze, it felt invasive, a claim on space I'd guarded since arriving. My eyes snapped open. There she was, Riley, kneeling behind the bench, her face inches from mine. Focused, unreadable. Her brows furrowed slightly, calloused fingers working through the knots with a care that didn't match the sharpness I'd seen in her stares. Strands slipped between her digits, the braid forming tight, deliberate. Flannel sleeves brushed my shoulders, rough against my shirt. I froze, heart slamming now, loud in the quiet room. What was this? Mockery? Some rural joke at the city girl's expense? I pulled away sharp, the half-formed braid unraveling in my hand. "What are you doing?" My voice cracked, sharper than intended. The words hung, pulling the air taut. She didn't flinch, just sat back on her heels, hands dropping to her lap, palms up like an offering. Her eyes met mine then, dark, steady, holding something I couldn't name. No smirk, no apology, just silence. I stood, chair scraping back, my neck tingling where her fingers had been. The warmth lingered, a ghost against the cold draft sneaking under the door. Heart still thudding, I backed toward my side of the room, rubbing the spot as if to erase it. Intrusion. That's what it felt like. Her way of reminding me I didn't belong. Touching without asking in this shared cage. Or worse, pity for the tangled mess I'd become. The fire popped, sparks jumping, but it did nothing to settle the storm inside. She rose slow, no rush in her movements. Turned to the stove, pouring water into a pot as if nothing had happened. The scent of earth clung to her, damp soil, crushed leaves from the path outside. It mixed with the wood smoke, filling the space she'd left empty. I watched her back, broad under the flannel, waiting for words that didn't come. None did. She set the pot to heat, then disappeared behind the partition without a glance. Alone by the fire, I sank back down. The sting of it all twisted in my chest. Violation, yes, but laced with something odd. Comfort? The way her fingers had moved, patient through the knots, easing what the wind had wrecked. It didn't fit the hostility I'd built in my mind, the scoops and slams. My hand strayed to my hair, feeling the loose ends, the absence of that pull. Why braid it at all? To fix me? Or claim me? The questions churned, mixing with the day's ache. That night, sleep came fitful. The cabin creaked with the wind, but my mind replayed the touch. The firm tug, the warmth spreading like ink and water. I shifted on the thin mattress, the sheets rough against my skin. Part of me wanted to confront her come morning, demand why. But the other part, quieter, held on to the odd solace. In the city's rush, no one had touched me like that. Intentional, unspoken. Days resumed their routine after that. Coffee brewed at dawn, chores divided without talk. I catch her watching still, eyes sharp over the rim of her mug. But now, the memory lingered in quiet moments. Splitting wood, the axe biting clean for once. Or stirring stew, steam rising like unanswered questions. Her fingers on my neck. The braid's ghost. It pulled at me, unraveling the hate I'd assumed. Routine days resumed, but that memory lingered in quiet moments, tugging like an unfinished strand. Weeks settled into a grind, chores pulling us together without choice. We'd haul water from the stream at dawn, buckets sloshing heavy between us. Side by side, our steps synced on the rocky path, flannel brushing against my sleeve. Once, her hand grazed mine, reaching for the rope handle. Rough skim catching, a spark jumping through me like static from dry air. I pulled back quick, heat rising under the cold morning mist. Tension hummed there, unspoken, her face unchanging as she hoisted the full load alone. Chopping wood came next, the axe alternating in our hands. I'd swing awkward, blade glancing off knots, sending vibrations up my arms. Riley watched then, intense, her eyes tracking every miss. I read criticism in them, sharp, unrelenting, like she tallied my failures against her ease. "Here," she'd say, stepping close to adjust my grip, her calluses over mine, firm and guiding. But the stare lingered after, making my swings falter more. Was it pity or resentment for slowing her down? The dust from the logs settled on my skin, fine and gritty, mixing with sweat to cake my forearms. It grounded me, a reminder of how out of place I felt. Afternoons meant mending the fence line, wire twisting under pliers in the wind-whipped field. We'd work yards apart, but her presence pressed in. A brush of her elbow against my side as we crouched to knot posts. Accidental, yet electric. My breath caught, body tensing against the unexpected warmth. She didn't acknowledge it, just straightened and moved on, eyes flicking back to check the line. I mistook those watches for judgment, her silence screaming that I bungled the task, too soft for this land's demands. The grit worked deeper into my palms, nails black from the soil, every pinch heightening the unease. Meals anchored the quiet heaviest. We'd sit at the scarred table, bowls of beans or potatoes steaming between us. Dust from the day clung to our clothes, settling on the wood like unspoken words. Forks scraped slow, the only sound breaking the hush. I'd glance up, catch her eyes on me again. Steady, probing. Criticism, I thought, for the way I ate too neat or held my spoon wrong. The air felt thick, heavy with what went unsaid, the shared space closing in. No laughter, no ease, just the weight of coexistence. Her stoic form across from me, flannel sleeves rolled to show forearms corded from work. I started testing boundaries then, small defiances to crack her shell. One evening, I left the axe unsharpened on the block, blade dull from my cuts. She found it next morning, ran a thumb along the edge, testing. No words, just endurance. Her picking up the whetstone without complaint, sparks flying as she honed it steady. Another time, I dragged the chair too close to the hearth, crowding her spot by the fire. She shifted aside, body rigid, but stayed silent, eyes narrowing once before flicking away. Stoic. Always. It fueled my push, a quiet rebellion against the isolation, but her calm only deepened the rift I felt. Doubts grew in the nights, isolation sharpening them like a blade on stone. Out here, miles from help, her stares felt threatening. What if the hostility turned? The cabin's walls seemed thinner, wind through cracks whispering warnings. I bolted the door extra tight, lay awake listening to her breathing beyond the partition. Safety frayed at the edges. Her strength, her silence, all tools that could trap me here. The memory of her fingers in my hair twisted too. No longer just odd, but invasive in the dark. Yet flickers came, unbidden. A nod once, rare, when I nailed a post straight without wobble. Approval in the tilt of her head, quick as a shadow. I dismissed it fast, trick of the light, or pity. Another time she passed me a glove during the chill, her hand lingering a beat on mine. Kinship? No, just practicality. I brushed it off, guards snapping back up. The routine wore on, misunderstandings layering like dust on the sills. But another tiring evening crept in, body aching from the fence line, inviting that repeated pull toward intimacy I couldn't shake. Rain came sudden that afternoon, sheets of it slamming the roof like fists on wood. We'd been out mending the fence again, wire slick under our hands, mud sucking at boots with every step. My shirt clung heavy, soaked through, the chill seeping deep into muscles already sore from the pull. By the time we stumbled back inside, water dripped from my hair in thick ropes, matting strands against my neck and face. I slumped by the hearth, not bothering to dry off. The fire Riley had started earlier crackled low, flames licking damp logs, but it did little against the wet cold settling in my bones. Exhaustion pinned me there, body heavy, mind drifting to the day's frustrations. The way the rain had turned every task futile, her silence louder in the downpour. I didn't censor at first. The rain drummed steady outside, masking the creak of floorboards. Then, movement. Close. Her shadow fell across the rug, long in the firelight. I kept my eyes shut, too tired to look, assuming she'd stoke the fire or hang her coat. But no rustle of tools. Instead, a warmth approached. Her presence, solid and quiet. Without a word, she knelt behind me, knees pressing into the worn floor. Her fingers hovered, then touched. Light at the crown of my head, parting the matted mess with care. The combing started slow. She worked through the knots first, no comb in hand, just her digits, threading gentle, untangling what the rain had bound. Each pass sent tingles across my scalp, the pressure firm but yielding, like she knew exactly where the snags hid. Her breath warmed my ear, close now, carrying the clean scent of wet earth and flannel warmed by the fire. It ghosted soft, rhythmic with her movements. My body tensed, sharp, muscles coiling under the unexpected intimacy. Fear flickered, old doubts rising. Another intrusion, her way of asserting control in this storm-bound space. What right did she have, touching again without asking? But the tension held only a moment. Her fingers traced lower, circling the base of my skull, easing deeper knots with a patience that unraveled me too. Warmth spread from the points of contact, chasing the rain's chill, pooling in my shoulders. I relaxed into it, slow, the craving surprising me. Despite the fear of her, I leaned back a fraction, letting the touch anchor me. The rain's roar faded, replaced by the soft slide of strands between her calluses, rough edges softened by the damp, pulling just enough to ground without pain. It felt needed, this quiet tending, in the cabin's dim glow. Our eyes met then, brief. I turned my head slight, catching her gaze over my shoulder. Hers held steady, dark pools reflecting the fire's orange flicker. Something deeper flashed there, a pull, raw and unguarded, like silt stirred in a riverbed, murky but alive. Not judgment, not disdain. It vanished quick as it came, her focus dropping back to the braid forming under her hands. Weave over under, tight and even, the rhythm building a quiet pull between us. Her knee brushed my side, flannel damp against my arm, and I didn't pull away. The braid finished with a final tuck, her fingers lingering at the end, twisting the tip secure. Warmth throbbed where she'd touched, scalp alive, neck loose. I exhaled slow, the moment stretching too full. Then awkwardness crashed in. She stood abrupt, hands falling away, the absence cool and sudden. No words, just her retreating to the stove, back broad and turned, busying with a pot of water. The air shifted, heavy again, the rain's patter filling the gap she'd left. I sat there, breathless, fingers straying to the braid. Smooth, weighted, a secret woven in. That night, alone in bed, the pattern emerged clear. Twice now, her hands in my hair, unasked but insistent. Ritual? Or something more? The questions turned in the dark, her intent a shadow I couldn't grasp. Why braid when words would do? To claim without risk, maybe, in this isolated quiet? My heart thudded uneven, craving the next touch even as doubt clawed back. The braid lay against my pillow, a tether to her silence. Daily closeness forced it then. Chores side by side, glances lingering longer, forcing confrontation with the feelings stirring beneath. Subtle shifts crept in after that rainy evening. Chores pulled us closer. no longer just side by side, but overlapping in the small space. Hauling water from the stream, her hand would linger when passing the bucket. Calluses grazing my palm, a beat too long. Flannel sleeves brushed my arms as we knelt to fill it, the rough weave catching on my skin like a quiet insistence. I felt it each time, a spark under the cold flow of the river, but pulled back inside, guarding the want rising in my chest. The internal pull tore at me, craving her touch. The steady weave of fingers in my hair, now echoed in these brushes, clashed with a fear of rejection. What if I leaned in, only to meet that sharp stare again? The silence between us felt like a ledge, one step from falling. Nights alone, I'd trace the braid's end, the smooth strands a reminder of what I shouldn't need. Her presence challenged everything I'd built. Walls from city hurts, where touches came with strings I couldn't untangle. Here, in this remote quiet, the craving grew, muddled and insistent, fearing she'd withdraw if I showed too much. The river mirrored it all one crisp morning. We walked its bank for kindling, the water low and sluggish, silt clouding the edges where it met stone. Brown and thick, it swirled slow, hiding what lay beneath. Rocks smoothed by years, or sharper ones, waiting. My emotions felt the same, stirred up by her nearness, unclear in the current. Silt settles eventually, she said, voice low as she pointed to a clear patch downstream. I nodded, watching the murk, my own thoughts churning like that hidden depth. Hidden pains surfaced in fragments then, over shared meals by the fire. Stories slipped out haltingly. One evening, stew bubbling, I mentioned the city lights, how they'd blinded me to quieter needs. Left someone behind, I added, vague, the ache of a love that faded in the noise. Riley stirred the pot, eyes on the flames. I know that road, she replied, soft. Grew up mending fences on a ranch. Folks expected straight lines, no bends. Her words hinted at pains unspoken, expectations that cut deeper than wire, a life bent around silence. No details, just enough to glimpse the scars under her quiet. It eased something in me, seeing her not as unyielding, but shaped by the same grit. Her authority wove through it all, quiet but firm. She'd guide my hands on the axe now, not just adjust, but hold. Her grip over mine, showing the swing's arc through muscle memory. It challenged my walls, that closeness. Her strength not overpowering, but inviting. I resisted at first, body stiff under her touch, fearing the power shift in this isolated place. But she never pushed, just demonstrated, her breath steady near my ear. The flannel's scent, wood smoke and earth, filled the air, eroding my defenses slow, like water on stone. Empathy rose then, unbidden. I saw strength in her silence, not coldness. A shield for the bends she'd mentioned, the ranch life's weight. Her stares softened in my mind, less judgment, more watchfulness, guarding what she couldn't say. When she nodded approval at my cleaner chop, it landed different. Warm. Earned. I caught myself watching her too, the way her shoulders carried the load, broad and sure. The doubts lingered, but empathy cracked them, revealing care beneath. A storm brewed that afternoon, clouds rolling heavy over the hills. Wind picked up, rattling the cabin as we shut the windows tight. Confined inside, the air thickened with unspoken needs, her presence closer than ever in the gathering dark. The storm hit full by evening, wind howling like it wanted in. Rain lashed the windows, turning the glass to sheets of blur. We huddled close by the hearth, the fire our only anchor in the shaking cabin. Logs popped under the draft, sparks flying wild. My hair had come loose in the frenzy of boarding shutters earlier, strands whipping free, tangled with worry as thunder rolled deep. I sat on the rug, knees drawn up, the chill seeping through despite the flames. Riley was beside me, closer than usual, her shoulder brushing mine. The air felt charged, isolation wrapping us tight in the roar. She shifted then, her knee pressing against my thigh. No words, just her hand, reaching, fingers grazing the mess at my nape. I didn't pull away this time. The touch started slow, deliberate, gathering the wild strands blown by the gale outside. Her digits trembled slightly, faint but there, like the storm stirred something in her too. She parted the hair with care, weaving tighter than before, each cross a measured pull. The braid built inch by inch, her breath warm on my neck, sinking with the wind's gusts. My heart thudded hard, matching the rhythm of her gentle tugs. Each one sent warmth spreading, from scalp down my spine, chasing the storm's bite. Her calluses caught soft, rough edges grounding the sensation, fingers lingering longer on the weave. The firelight danced across her hands, shadows playing on the veins standing out. I leaned into it, body yielding, the isolation amplifying every slide of strand over strand. Heat bloomed in my chest, sinking with the pulls. Thud, weave, thud, until the cabin's shake felt distant. Just us in the glow. The ritual dragged, slower now, her tremors easing into steadiness. But the weight pressed too full. I couldn't hold it silent anymore. Why do you do this? My voice cracked in the quiet between thunderclaps, raw and small against the storm. The words hung, pulling the air taut. Her fingers paused mid-weave, strands half loose in her grip. She didn't move, breath catching sharp. I turned, eyes meeting hers over my shoulder. They were raw, dark pools stripped bare, unsaid words swirling like the rain outside. No guard, just vulnerability, edges frayed by the question. Her hand hovered, trembling again, the braid unfinished. Thunder rumbled low, vibrating the floor, but she held still, gaze locked on mine. Something broke there, in the flicker of fire on her face. Fear, maybe, or the ache of holding back too long. The touch shifted then. Her fingers dropped from my hair, trailing down to my hand instead. She took it, palm to palm, calluses pressing into my skin. Rough, warm, affirming. I laced mine through hers, the bond sealing in the squeeze. No pull away, just holding, her thumb tracing slow circles on my knuckles. The storm fading to backdrop. Kinship flooded in, solid, unspoken, her strength not pushing but meeting mine. It hit me overwhelming then. The hate I'd seen in her stares, the silence I'd read as disdain. It crumbled. All facade, masking this possessive care, deep and fierce. Her way of claiming, without words, braiding me into her world because saying it scared her more than the wind. The realization washed warm, erasing the doubts, leaving only the pull of her, crazy, quiet love woven through every touch. My free hand strayed to the half braid, feeling the intent in the loose strands. She squeezed tighter, eyes softening, the rawness easing into certainty. The storm peaked once more, lightning cracking bright through the cracks. But inside, calm settled slow. Her hand in mine, the fire steady now. The rain eased to patter, thunder rolling distant. We sat like that, breath sinking, the cabin quieting around us. Calm after the storm led to honest reckoning. The air lighter with what we'd finally touched. The storm faded to drips on the roof, the cabin settling into hush. Firelight flickered low, casting long shadows across the rug. Riley's hand still warmed mine, calluses rough against my palm. But the quiet stretched too thin now. I couldn't let it end there, not with the questions churning like silt in my gut. I squeezed her fingers once, then pulled free, turning to face her fully. Knees tucked under, I met her eyes, still raw, waiting. Why the stares? The touches. My voice came steady, though my heart thudded against my ribs. Direct, no hedging. All this time, I thought you hated me. The silence, the glares. But the braiding, it's like you're saying something else. The words hung, pulling the air taut. Her gaze dropped to the flames, jaw tightening, broad shoulders hunching slight under the flannel. Defensive walls snapped up, her hand withdrawing to her lap, fingers curling into fists. She stood abrupt, boots scraping the floorboards. Paced to the window, back to me, staring into the dark where rain trailed down the glass. The fire popped, embers shifting, but she stayed silent, the barrier thick as the storm's remnants. Pressure built in my chest, years of misreads, the isolation sharpening every doubt. I rose too, closing the distance, my bare feet cold on the wood. Riley, talk to me. Soft but firm, hand hovering near her arm. She flinched, then softened, shoulders easing as she turned. Eyes met mine again, guarded but cracking. I don't hate you. Her voice rumbled low, like gravel under tires. Paused, breath hitching. Never did. It's scaring you away. That's what I feared. She rubbed her neck, calluses rasping against skin. Words stick sometimes, get twisted. Out here, alone, I thought actions would say it clearer. The braiding, it's how I hold on. Show your mind without messing it up. Confession spilled slow, raw edges showing the fear beneath her quiet. Possessive love, woven silent because speaking it risked the bend she'd hinted at before. The ranch expectations, the hidden self. Warmth flooded me, chasing the last chill. Her flannel sleeve brushed my hand as she stepped closer, the rough weave grounding. I reached up, fingers tracing her jaw, tense, then yielding. Our breaths mingled, close now, the fire's glow painting her face soft. She leaned in, tentative, lips meeting mine in the light's flicker. Gentle at first, testing, then deeper, her hand cupping my neck where the half-braid hung loose. Taste of salt and earth, warmth spreading like the hearth's embers. I kissed back, body pressing near, the years of guarded ache easing in the hold. We pulled apart slow, foreheads touching, her eyes searching mine. Your turn, she whispered, thumb stroking my cheek. Vulnerability hung there, inviting. I exhaled, walls crumbling. City life, I hid everything. Women like us, connections snapped quick, fear of judgment, always moving before it stuck. Shared the guarded past then, the failed tries, the loneliness masked in bustle, seeking this remote quiet to breathe free. No details spared, voice cracking on the isolation that mirrored hers. She listened, hand steady on mine, acceptance in the nod, the squeeze. No judgment, just seeing, full and real. Tension broke then, a laugh bubbling from her, low, unexpected, rumbling through her chest. Mine followed, light, easing the weight of years alone. The sound filled the cabin, chasing shadows, laughter weaving us tighter than any braid. Her arms wrapped around me, flannel soft against my back, holding the release close. New understanding reshaped our shared world that night. Silence turning companion, not cage. Sunlight filtered through the cracks the next morning, pale and soft, warming the rumpled sheets. I woke tangled in her arms, Riley's breath steady against my neck, her body a solid weight behind me. Flannel draped over us both, rough and familiar now, carrying the faint smoke from last night's fire. No rush to move. Her hand rested on my hip, fingers splayed wide, possessive in sleep. I shifted slight, feeling the braid from the storm, loose now, but still woven tight at the base. She stirred, eyes opening slow, dark and clear in the light. A smile tugged her lips, small but real, pulling me closer. The cabin felt different, walls no longer closing in, but holding us safe. Braiding became our ritual then, natural as breathing. That afternoon, after coffee by the window, steam curling in the chill air, she sat me down on the bench, her knees bracketing mine. No words needed. Her fingers worked through my hair again, parting strands with ease, weaving them deliberate. Each tug sent warmth down my spine. Her calluses familiar now, tracing patterns that spoke louder than talk. I leaned back, head against her shoulder, watching dust motes dance in the beam from the pane. The pull was gentle, affirming, her breath warm on my ear. Stays better this way, she murmured, voice low, the first whisper of many. I nodded, hand covering hers at the end, twisting the tip together. Intimacy deepened in the quiet hours. Kisses came easy after that. Soft at first, over shared mugs, her lips tasting of black coffee and earth. They'd linger by the hearth, fire crackling low, her hand cupping my face, thumb brushing my cheek. Whispers followed, fragments in the dark. Her telling of ranch nights alone, the weight of unspoken bends. Me sharing city shadows, the fear of fading loves. You're not fading here, she'd say, voice rumbling against my skin, pulling me under the covers. Her touch affirmed it all, crazy, unspoken love, in the way she'd trace my collarbone, fingers lingering like the braids she wove. Possessive, yes, but tender, erasing the old doubts with every press. Nights blurred into mornings, bodies fitting like pieces long separated. The cabin's creak's a lullaby now. Challenges rose, but we navigated them side by side. Privacy in this remote life meant carving space in the shared walls. Her side for tools, mine for the desk, but evenings blurred the lines. The wind still howled through cracks, but we'd seal them together. Her teaching me the rag's right fold, laughter bubbling when mine tore free. Isolation tested us once. A week of heavy snow trapping supplies, forcing reliance. She'd chop through drifts for wood, me tending the fire, our hands brushing in the pass. Grit under nails mixing, no tension left. We make it, she'd say, eyes steady, affirming the unity. Power shifted even, her quiet authority now a guide, not a wall. I'd challenge her on fence knots, fingers over hers, showing city precision. Acceptance flowed both ways, the remote quiet a forge for our bond. I felt seen then, truly. Walls down, no guards against her gaze. Her stares held warmth now, pulling me in where they'd once pushed away. Emotional payoff settled deep, like silt finding bottom in the river, clear and solid. No more replaying glares by the fire alone. Instead, her arm around me, sharing the glow. Vulnerability opened wide, me admitting the ache of hidden self in the city, her whispering ranch scars, the fear of bends that broke others. Unity strengthened us, her broad frame against mine in the cold snaps, breaths sinking through the nights. We glimpsed beyond the cabin one clear evening, standing on the porch, her arm loose around my waist. The hills rolled out, endless, the river glinting low. Stay after the retreat? She asked, voice soft against the wind. I nodded, hand in hers, calluses grounding. Planning came in whispers, extending the lease, maybe building an addition for more space. Her skills with mine. Strength and unity, facing the remote world's edges together, no longer strangers but woven tight. The future felt possible, not daunting, her presence the anchor. Silence closed the days full of comfort now, not judgment. Evenings by the fire, words sparse but weighted, her fingers idly twisting a strand of my hair. The cabin's hush wrapped us, a companion, echoing the love we'd found in the quiet. Her fingers wove the last strands tight, eyes locking on mine with quiet certainty. No more doubts, just the pull of her crazy love, steady as the river's flow. If this resonated, subscribe for more authentic Sapphic tales. Tell me below if you felt that silent connection.